All right, everybody, I want to thank you for joining us tonight. Very excited about tonight's speaker. But before I make the introduction, I just wanted to share a little bit of things that are going on here at Y-kiki. So we have launched our We Own Winter fun diving contest. So we started this a couple of years ago, and we've really been enjoying the getting the word out, getting some dives in that we wouldn't normally be doing over the winter. Actually, it was a lot of it was geared around when we were getting ready for our Antarctica trip. There was a bunch of us diving, trying to get our dives in and getting prepared for our Antarctica trip. And so that's actually where I met tonight's speaker, Evan. So is on our Antarctica trip. But we launched our We Own Winter fun diving contest, and I might have to lean in and ask Paul to remind me what are our. So this year there's no fee. You do have to register, and the goal is to do dives over the winter in water that is 60 degrees or below 60 degrees.
Cooler climates.
In the cooler climates, okay, and then you have to log it on social media and tag us on it, and you have to. It's going to be based on minutes underwater this time, right?
Bottom time.
Bottom time. Bottom time of the accumulation of your bottom time underwater versus number of dives. So the dive has to be 15 feet minimum, somewhere in there. Yeah. Okay.
It just has to be below 60 degrees. So
below 60
mermet
degrees.
doesn't get below 60 until you hit about 40.
Yeah. Okay. So there you go. So no fee this year. It's just bragging rights. The $50 fee was really for the sweatshirt. So here's the logo on the back. So if you want the sweatshirt, just let me know and we can get one ordered for you, and that it's $50. But if you don't want the sweatshirt and you just want to participate, you just got to register, and I think that's up already to sign up. So the contest is going to be from November 1st through March 30th. We've had just a ton of fun trying to outdo each other and logging our dives. So We Own Winter is up for the taking. And then up next after that, this one doesn't count for We Own Winter diving, but it is a fun event that we've done. I forget what year now we've been doing this, but it's our annual Underwater Scuba Santa photo shoot. So you can get your picture with Scuba Santa underwater. It's at Principia School Pool. It's $15 a person, and all the proceeds, all the monies, go to the St. Louis Area Food Bank. You can just write the check directly to the St. Louis Area Food Bank. And it'll be from, I think we do 1 to 4, something like that. 1 to 4, like 15-minute sessions. It's going to be you as an individual. It can be you and your family underwater. We can accommodate non-divers as well, or even my youth divers. So we provide all the equipment, so you don't need to get any of your stuff wet. And it's for a good cause. So sign up. That is also available on the website to register for Scuba Santa photos. It's going to be, I should probably mention the date, December 6th at Principia School Pool, and you do need to register to participate so we know you're coming and we have the right sized gear available. Okay? So Scuba Santa. This is going to be, would count towards the We Own Winter. It's our 3rd annual, I believe, dive into the new year. So this event is hosted by my friends Nick and Julia Atherton and gang. We show up at Mermet Springs on December 31st. We get into the water about 30 minutes before New Year's, and we watch. They place a DSMB, and it's got lights all. It's not lights. It's chem lights all around it. And so at the stroke of midnight, they actually do it over the intercom. Randy or somebody will do a countdown for us, and we'll launch the DSMB. So it's a little bit opposite of the ball dropping in Times Square. But anyway, December 31st, Mermet Springs. Those dives would absolutely count towards your We Own Winter counts. So fun way to slide into the new year. And then the very next day, of course, on New Year's is Mermet Springs. Hey, Rick, is Mermet Springs Polar Bear Plunge, where we all line up on the dock and they do a countdown, and we all do a giant stride into the water and make a dive. So that one is on New Year's Day. So they kind of lead into each other, and you should participate. It's a lot of fun, a lot of bragging rights, and fun way to start off the new year. And then finally, I want to make mention, we are very excited to once again be participating in the Ice Hole Festival. It's at Lake Okoboji in Iowa. The dates are going to be January 28th through February 1st. The Saturday is February 1st, okay, that Saturday. So we drive up there, and then we take the class. If you aren't already ice certified, you take the class to learn how to dive underneath the ice. Again, bragging rights, just great camaraderie. There's a lot of different dive shops that join. It's hosted by International Scuba out of Texas, and they do an amazing job. It's sponsored by Patty and Fourth Element and some other entities, and so they have some nice giveaways, and again, just overall bragging rights, and you get to enjoy. It's just a wicked cool to walk out on the lake, and it's frozen over, and dive in the underneath the ice. So we've always had a group join us. I think we had about 10 people go last year. So we'll be sponsoring this, and you should give it a consider. Pretty fun. So without further ado, and we also, I should mention, of course, we got Black Friday coming up. We're not really on the radar for everybody's Black Friday sales, but we'll have some specials coming through the shop. Garmin's already announced some of their things. A lot of the other manufacturers are announcing sale opportunities. So we'll have more of that stuff coming up on the website. So keep your eyes on the website and social media. And we'd love to see you on Black Friday if you want to come on out, and of course Small Business Saturday, and maybe we'll be creative and maybe come up with something for Cyber Monday this year. So keep an eye out for those opportunities, and we'll have a lot of well-stocked stuff from DEMA, our annual trade show. We just had it last week. We're going to be well-stocked for the holidays, so do stop in if you've got something special in mind for your gift-giving needs. We're available. We're happy to help you. So without further ado, I do want to welcome tonight's guest. As I mentioned, I met Evan on our Antarctica trip. He had formed Marine Imaging Technologies in 2010, and it's a subsea imaging company headquartered out of Cape Cod, Massachusetts. But he has this company has positioned him in a bunch of different areas, including working with the History Channel. He's dove on the Titanic, the sister ship Britannic, and the Arizona. I'm not sure he's dove on it, but he's done projects on those wrecks. So he said he's got just a variety of things he's excited to share with us about shipwreck diving. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Evan Kovacs.
Hello. Hi. It's nice to meet everybody. And I got to say, for a landlocked area, you guys have a heck of a schedule. That's pretty fantastic. Here on the Cape, diving seems to be a lot less busy. Let's see. Let me get this back. I think that's reversed, right? There you go. All right. So do you guys see the bow?
Yep, we got it.
Shipwreck. All right. So, all right. Well, first of all, thank you. And I always, when I do talks and whatnot, I try to say, I'll try to read the room and make it casual as I can. And if you have any questions, just stop me. But I can't see anything but it's a presentation. So just by all means, if you have any questions, just shout them out, and we can, I can go from there. But
keep an eye on the chat too. So if anybody asks questions in the chat, Evan, I'll shout them out for you.
Oh, cool. Well, I know there's no audio, but this is just a little video that I threw together that just talks a little bit about a lot of the stuff that we do with marine imaging technologies. And I'll sort of get into my background a little bit, but our company, we're a small company, but we have been very fortunate and I've been very fortunate over the last 25 years to have never had to put a resume together, but I've never said no to a job, and have been very lucky and have been able to just work on a whole variety of different things. And this is what I tried to put together in this video is just a smattering of the places that we go and the things that we do. So first and foremost, we're an imaging company, and we build or design camera systems to go to what I like to say are some of the most hostile environments in the world, which is the very bottom of the ocean. So we have stuff that goes that's been down to in several of the trenches and everything up above. We also build some custom robotics, and what we were looking at right there a second ago was from inside the USS Arizona, where we built an ROV to go deep inside the shipwreck. And you'll see a bit more of this type of stuff later, but our image designs and our camera designs have sort of run the gamut from video to stills to ultra high res video, and then immersive, and again things I'll talk about a little bit later, but and of course photogrammetry, which is a big part of probably what I'll talk about in the beginning here. But in short, we've been lucky, and we get to do and still continue to do a lot of really neat, interesting, and different places. And one of the things that's been that's really helped us out is that I have a tremendous, a lot of this was based on work that I was doing, and I have a tremendous amount of respect for not just the underwater world, but the heritage, the people, the things that they're associated with. And so I got started on this. I actually got started in the theater. I started off as an actor, and I was on stage for a number of years, but wasn't making enough money to really survive doing that, and found my way to doing lighting and sound design. And at one point, I was doing lighting for Lincoln Center, and we started doing live events. We did jazz from Lincoln Center, and some friends of mine ended up hosting a show on the History Channel called Deep Sea Detectives, and the cameraman asked me asked them if they knew somebody who could help them out with some underwater lighting. And lucky for me, I like I said, never said no to anything. And before I knew it, I got in my car and drove down to North Carolina, and got there 2 days early because my car was falling apart, and I was afraid I'd lose the engine along the way. And that was the beginning of an odyssey that we went around the world for 4 to 5 years just filming. And I worked my way up from lighting assistant to, at the time, the lead camera on the show. And then it just kind of took off from there. In 2005, I met folks at Woods Hole when we did our first Titanic trip. And in 2006, I started working regularly with Woods Hole, and eventually moved up to Cape Cod, and just kept branching out. And some of the stuff that's on the screen here are just a few of the projects that we've either worked on through Woods Hole, things that I've filmed in, or things that I've built camera systems for. And like I was sort of alluding to earlier, I guess I've been in the right place at the right time, and in many ways I try to be easy to work with, and I think that helps a lot. So what do we do, and what does that mean? So this is just some of the camera systems from that we've done over the years, small smattering. So we're looking at 3D, we're looking at panoramic, some of the early HD cameras, and then just a whole pile of miscellaneous boards and converters. And when I went to Woods Hole, I was basically, one of my first jobs was they brought out a pile of parts and said, "Oh, this is a camera." And to me at that point, a camera was just something you put on your shoulder and you shoot with, or you put in a housing. And so it was really a crash course in electronics and camera development. And I think it was a little bit of trial by fire. They really wanted to see if if I was going to run screaming or step up and try to put it together. And it wasn't easy, but I put it together, and that ended up being one of my first jobs for Woods Hole was to go down on Alvin out to the hydrothermal vents and shoot HD and put the first 3D camera system out there. So, and that was kind of my introduction to 3D, which I'll come back to in a minute. But 3D is one of my my early and first loves. And after that, and concurrent to that, we started building vehicles. We started putting cameras on vehicles, and you mentioned Becky earlier, but in Becky Kagan, and in this lower left-hand image, that's Becky shooting a vehicle that's no longer with us. That was Nereus, and Nereus imploded out in the, I think it was the Kermadec Trench. But, we one of the things that sort of helped set us up at Woods Hole is that there was an imaging lab called the Advanced Imaging and Visualization Laboratory. And what I was particularly good at and fond of was storytelling, right? I started off on the stage in the theater, and I kind of brought that love of storytelling to the science community. And one of the things that I learned early on about scientists is that many of them, not all of them, they're brilliant people, but they're often terrible communicators at what they're trying to get across. And they will get into the minutia of something that is important, but is not salient and not salient to the audience at hand. And they don't know how to condense that and put that into something that is engaging and intriguing. And so a lot of what we did at the institution was to create and film videos and basically do scientific outreach. And we were very successful with it, and they loved it. And so we kept doing more and more. And once they realized that we were doing more than just building cameras, they wanted us to go out and do, basically to do what we do. And that was and continues to be kind of the backbone of everything that we do. I think that imagery and imaging and is it's one of the most compelling ways to get people motivated to share a story, to share an idea. The whole adage of an image is worth 1,000 words. Well, when you start getting into like 3D and immersive video, where you can literally put somebody there, and that's what I want to do. Is I want to take somebody that will never be and never for 1,000 reasons can never go to some of these places, but give them the opportunity to see it and experience it as closely as they possibly can. And that's one of the things that really drives me. And to that end too, that pushes out to archaeology, which is actually one of my first my first loves. So this is just a couple of images from Antikythera. Depends how you pronounce it now, but Antikythera is how we pronounced it. If you're an Indiana Jones fan, it's Antikythera. And this was the home of the Antikythera mechanism, world's first computer, over 2,000 years old. And so after DSD and Woods Hole and all of these things and my background, what I didn't get into, my background as a diver was I learned to dive in New York. In a canal with boats going overhead, and where people should probably run screaming and not be in the water, and I just fell in love with it. And early in my career, it was all about lobsters and portholes and shipwrecks, and like all good New York wreck divers, your first gift was a sledgehammer, your second was a bag, and then that's where you went. And over time, as I was working with a lot of archaeologists, I kind of came around on some of that and was bringing up a lot less. And again, that whole idea of like, okay, I can do more by telling their story and communicating and trying to go through and tease out what these ships have to tell us. And that's the cool thing. They all have something to tell us. There's a human connection. It's not about the shipwreck. It's about the people. It's about the people that lived, worked, and died on that. And these shipwrecks are just a microcosm of of society at the time, and that's something that's both to me, thrilling, exciting, and extremely challenging to find. And more often than not, on a shipwreck like this, like on the Antikythera shipwreck, which is really just, bits of debris spread out, some random timbers, and of course, lots of amphora, the occasional bronze arm or a little computer, something like that. But, we were able to generate a lot of interest by doing things there, and communicating the story. And that photo up on the upper right is one, or that series anyway, was one that put this whole thing on the map, because it's like, Iron Man is going to look at a shipwreck. Well, that's that's engaging and compelling, and certainly gets people interested, and turns a few eyes when you have it on the front of a yacht and you pull into a port in Greece. So that's the conversation starter you really want. Now, I mentioned earlier 3D and sort of immersive media, and that's really that's one of the things that I really love, because as much as I enjoy and believe in the power of just any old image, or not, I shouldn't say any old image, but the power of an image to convey something and put us in a place. 3D and really good VR content has the ability to really transform us and put us there. And I don't necessarily mean, I always put the anaglyph up because everybody knows that, and how interesting and terrible it was at all at the same time. But at least it was you get something cool out of your, like, Cracker Jack box or whatever that was when we were kids. But 3D is initially was actually where it started with when I started with it at Woods Hole, was not the storytelling side of it. It was more of the quantitative tools for both measurement and context. And when we brought it out to the hydrothermal vents, I mean, one of the things that was really cool is that's over 20 years old. They're still looking at that footage and still analyzing it and still using it as a sort of a temporal study. And so what we ended up doing was, and what I learned quite a bit about, which really this is the part, oddly enough, in some ways, more than storytelling, but I say that, and at the same time, they really do go hand in hand, which I'll explain a little bit more later. But we were taking early 3D. We were doing the beginning of photogrammetry about 15 years ago, where we were taking stereo images, having everything calibrated in camera, shooting the calibration charts like that. And that was, we would shoot things, checkerboard charts that were, 8 foot by 10 foot. We built ones that are even larger, that are smaller, all to try to quantify and characterize the lens and the sensors and your whole image path, and making sure those things don't move. You end up with a great stereo pair. And then I mean, we're all familiar with what photogrammetry is nowadays, but 15 years ago, this is what actually, we have a long ongoing partnership, which I'll probably get into later, with the Park Service and the Submerged Resources Center. And it was all because of these images here. This was from the B-29 bomber out in Lake Mead. And we were, able to, again, pull a little do stereo images, build a model, and most importantly, get repeatable and quantitative data out of it. And that's something that you can do with your photogrammetry today, but there's a whole slew of reasons why that is both challenging and difficult at times. I'll come back to photogrammetry in a second, but just sort of in the array of, sort of in that vein of what we're doing, we've been taking all of this imaging technology and trying to apply it at all levels. So both shallow, deep, and originally we started, like I said, with stereo. Well, working with Park Service, we started to get into camera arrays, and we tried all sorts of different things where we'd actually go out to shipwrecks and shoot some models. And again, this by this point, this is 5 or 6 years ago. Photogrammetry models were, everybody can do a spinning model. You can take a GoPro, you can do it, and they're fantastic. That gives us context. But we wanted to know a little bit more. We wanted to make sure we had repeatable, quantitative, and mensurative images that we could then go down and whether it's in 6 months or 6 years or 60 years, go back and be able to look at something and have the data set that will stand up to time, and basically go in and be able to measure that rivet if that's what you needed to do. And so we tested and worked with a number of different people where we had up to 10 cameras at a time that were HD. Then we went into high res, ultra high res, and we experimented endlessly. And that was one of the really nice things about our partnership with Parks, is that Parks has the submerged resources, but not the resources of equipment. And a lot of this was still with Woods Hole. We had, as a science institution, we had a lot more resources, but and so together we were able to kind of combine our efforts, and eventually we ended up on this system, which we call CRA. And CRA is it's a photogrammetry system that we've been using now for 5 or 6 years. We've got a number of papers on it, and I mean, it looks a little big, it's a little cumbersome. It's not for going to do coral polyps, although you can resolve coral polyps in there. But we built CRA to do the acreage underwater in many ways. So as we're not seeing it in this picture, but what we do is we take our cameras, and for this we based it basically on the Nikon for a variety of reasons. I mean, I wanted it to go with things that are much more sciencey, like machine vision types cameras that we can control quite a bit more. But our partners with Parks wanted something that was a little bit more off the shelf, just to make it easier and simpler. And it does do that. It doesn't give you. It makes some of the data that you want to collect a little bit more challenging, but the imagery you can't. I mean, I know there are a lot of underwater shooters here. You can't beat the images of an icon. They're beautiful. Now, what we ended up doing was, doing a bunch of tests, right? So we ran around. We'd go down to the Keys, and we started this in nice shallow water. We shot a wreck called Mandalay. Now, if you haven't had a chance to go down to the Heritage Trail in Biscayne and visit the national park, then you should. It's beautiful. It's a great place to go. And this was. And it's a great place to start, too, because it's great visibility, there's lots of light, you don't need to worry about lighting, and, you want to at least start with something that's going to give you the modicum success. So what the imaging array allowed us to do was capture in 15 minutes or so, we could capture thousands of images from all different angles and ultimately put it together into this, this great model. And we thought, okay, this is great. Now, how can we, what can we start to do to improve it? And, one of the things that I like to do, especially with imagery and imaging, is find out, take the technology and say, okay, what can we, what analog device can we throw away? And the archaeologist hated me for saying this, but I'm like, I mean, I understand the need to teach it, but you don't have to go out with a tape measure on many of these things anymore. And so I really wanted to throw away the tape measure. And of course, to do that, you've got to prove it. And again, we have a great model, it's very pretty. We can zoom in, we can do all these things, but we needed to get it down to that repeatable, quantitative level. So then again, with Parks, we went down to the Tortugas, and this was a wreck that was mapped all by hand, and this was the archaeological record for 20, 30 years. And, you know, we went down and we started doing the photogrammetry on it. And, you know, it was great. You know, we learned a lot of things. One, the map is wrong. You know, things aren't, even though things are triangulated and whatnot, it's not quite as accurate as you think, especially over large distances. We could go and on a daily basis continue to add to this and, you know, make this, again, a big, beautiful picture. It's wonderful. It's nice. And, but again, where it's not, we needed to get it to that next level, that quantitative level. So what we started doing was integrating GPS into it. And there's a company out there called US, and they make kind of the poor man's USBL. And if you're not familiar with USBL, it's something that we use in the deep sea. It's ultra short baseline. And I call it the poor man's USBL, when in reality it's closer to long baseline, but that's a whole other thing. But basically what it does is on the sea array, what we do is we have a little transducer and a tablet. And so now with that tablet, we know where we are. We can start putting lines on there that we can follow. And then around the site, we have 3 floating beacons that basically get their own GPS. They also have transducers on the bottom, and they're all talking to each other, and they're all constantly triangulating where we are on the bottom. So suddenly, for the first time, we have positioning. And, you know, although it may not be super accurate positioning, the model is very accurate. And over the thousands of images and hundreds of feet that we run it, we started to notice that, and not just notice, but start running it through, you know, doing things, quote, the classic way, where, you know, you go down to a wreck, you set up an RTK point, and what we found is that by combining the GPS, the calibrations, the sensors, our entire package, we were getting down to repeatable sub-millimeter accuracy and centimeters over, I think it was 150 meters, we were off 2 to 3 centimeters, potentially off over 2 to 3 centimeters, which is, you know, equal to almost anything that was being done underwater. So this was repeatable, and it has been. But, you know, like any good scientist, we needed to go prove it again, and we went out to Isle Royal, which is again another beautiful, fantastic place. And once again, this is the wreck of the Glen Lion. And for a long time, this was, you know, there are great pictures to go with it, but this was the map. So we went out, and in 2 dives, we filmed and mapped this whole area and have it down to, again, centimeter resolution. And what this doesn't show, which I'll try to show, I think I have a video here in a little bit that'll show a little bit more, is the contour and the context, where, I mean, we're looking at this flat image, but ultimately this is over 60 feet. I think it's like the shallowest to down where it drops. But again, the detail that you can get in this is fantastic. I'm not going to, you know, I know we're all familiar with photogrammetry, but I wanted to talk about just why we keep getting hired. I mean, I have a lot of friends that do photogrammetry, and they're like, well, how do you get hired for it? And I'm like, well, I mean, we're not just, we're trying to do something that's more than just the context. As good as the context is, that's not enough for a lot of clients that want to not just see what's growing on there and around it, but they want to know. So where this gets interesting are things like precocity, right? So that's the volume of something. So we've been doing things on wind farms out here, and so they put these monopiles in the water, and they go in. They're clean. They're, you know, it's beautiful yellow paint and white paint and stuff like that. So we film that one year, and then we come back the next year, and suddenly it's covered with mussels, and all sorts of other things. And there's fish all over there, and, you know, I mean, it's like a garden. But, you know, they don't care as much about that necessarily, but they want to know, well, how thick is that? How much weight are we putting on these things? Will there be an issue? Will it be able to sustain? So by going and being able to do things accurately, we can then say, all right, well, the volume of this was, X number of, square meters, but now it's gone up 3% because of the overall thickness of things that are on top of it. And so that's something that's a powerful tool for, for a lot of, it's not just wind farms, but, all sorts of other, other underwater infrastructure. And so much of our world now is, from data centers on down that type of thing is becoming more and more important. When is it going to fail? We were talking about the Arizona earlier, and every time a new base commander comes out there, the first thing they ask is, when is the Arizona going to fail? When is all that oil is gonna come out? And fortunately, there's some good answers on that from some of the work most of the work the Park Service has been doing for years, along with some of their partners. But even on some of the work that we did inside, where we were able to get the ROV deep down into the wreck and into an anoxic environment where there was bacteria that had eaten the oil and stabilized the environment, which was pretty unique. And I don't really push a lot of films that we do, but there's 2 films that I'm going to talk about, and that one is one of my all-time favorites, and it's called Into the Arizona. And this is that wreck that the Glen Lyon that we were looking at earlier, obviously. But Into the Arizona, and I think you can get it for free on YouTube. Is a fantastic. It's just a fantastic documentary. And it's one of those ones where we had 6 months to build something. We gave them a quote and said we needed 6 months. And 6 weeks beforehand, they showed up and said, "Oh, we have the money." I'm like, "Well, great. What do you want us to do?" And, this is not enough time. And, we sat down and talked about it and decided that, there's only 5 guys left at that point, or four guys left that had served on the Arizona. And one of them had said, I never got to see the stern of that wreck. And that's all we needed. And we spent the next 6 weeks and then, just working around the clock to build this vehicle and make it work, more importantly. And when we showed up in Hawaii with cases of parts and went to the Home Depot to buy every tool that they possibly had so we could continue machining this thing and putting it together, they were all pretty, scared. They weren't very excited when we first showed up and saw what we had. But it's one of those ones we did manage to get it together. And this is just something I like to show. Everybody's always asking. This is Nancy Kithra. It's my partner Brett. He took his camera down, and we all heard this little pop. What the heck was that? Saw some bubbles, and so I went over to take a look. And this wasn't the first time I got to film fire underwater. That was on volcanoes, but you could actually see the lithium battery is just burning out underwater when his flat port imploded. Just something good to break it up a little bit and remind us that. And this is only 170 foot, and this was off the shelf stuff, but still is still kind of cool. But when you're kind of up against certain limits and boundaries, then that type of thing can happen. Things go boom. So another project that we worked on, which was a great combination of sort of photogrammetry and exploration, and is just something that's very close to my heart, is working with the DPAA. DPAA, if you're not familiar with them, they're a group and a part of the DoD. And their whole mission is to go out and find and hopefully recover both wrecks and find wrecks from any American conflict. And there's been plenty of American conflict to find wrecks from. And most importantly, though, find the people that were killed in action with them. And this particular one, this was a B-24 out in Croatia. And it's again, if you guys are looking out here, dive club, and if you're looking for a place to dive, Croatia, Vis, it's one of them. It's a beautiful, beautiful spot with, one of the most important things that goes with any good dive trip is some of the best food I've ever had. So I highly recommend it. And what we would do is go and basically, we're bringing up all of we'd suck up, vacuum up all of the detritus, the sand, basically anything that we moved would come to the surface and we would sort it. And in doing this was a multi-day process that we, at the time, did the biggest dive boat I've ever been on, which was a Croatian Navy ship. And I don't know if we'll see it in this next little clip, and actually we're not going to be able to hear it, so I'll just talk over it. But this is the photogrammetry side of this was an important aspect to both document pre and post disturbance. So as we were going, we would film, we'd build a model so that we could document how far down we were going and start to understand, again, the context. Because even though there was reasonably good visibility here, you weren't able to see everything all at one point. And that from a planning point of view, that was both important and from our sponsors with the DoD and DPAA, they want to know exactly how deep are you, where are you, what are you seeing, all of that kind of stuff. And this was the first time that photogrammetry was used on a big commercial archaeology project, at least that we were aware of, and it became one of the mainstays. So I spent a lot of time talking about photogrammetry. I'll try to get off of that, but it is something that's a big part of our world now and the stuff that we do, and it's just something that's very cool for the context and being able to see ships and sites in their entirety and in a way that we couldn't do previously. So in doing all of this, we started building our own vehicles. This was a robot that we call Pixel. Pixel's a little. We even coined it. We even created a new class of. I just noticed a misspelling. ROV. And we call it the cinema class. This was designed to be able to carry some of the massive cameras that were prevalent 6-7 years ago. And what you can do. I mean, big cameras are still an important part for cinema, but not quite as big as they used to be. And it's the whole idea of this one. I don't have it in here, but we had a whole cartoon strip around it. We made a little character and Pixel would go exploring, and it was just a lot of fun and helped us connect to kids and whatnot. Now, VR, VR is another, I mentioned this earlier, and it's sort of a continuation of our 3D, but we're constantly doing stuff with in the VR space, although that space is somewhat limited right now. But we built this system to go out and be able to do things in ultra low light. So, those dusk shots and those real low light cameras, that was sort of what we built hydras for. And, this was, fairly sizable. We have designed, but not quite built some of our smaller systems yet, which happen to have a lot of, we like those cartoons. So reminded us quite a bit of Bender. From Futurama. Futurama. If you've not seen it, it's a fun show. Now going back to VR, this is one of our projects that we were able to do is what we see down in the corner here, and I should have put a different video up, but I'll in a sec here. We started doing photogrammetry and comparing it to LiDAR. And if you're not familiar with LiDAR is underwater lasers. And at a minimum, it looks really cool. And it's something that, if you're ever making an underwater film, you want to have lasers because it just adds. And people connect with lasers. So, this was a project over in the Marshall Islands. That's a devastator that we are hoping to recover at some point. They needed some real exact measurements on it. And again, what we found was that the photogrammetry was pretty much equal to the LiDAR on a lot of this. And at the same time, we did a bunch of VR 360 with it. And I'm sorry, I'll play a little bit of it, but this is the wrong video. This is basically VR from the site. This is a devastator, but it's a whole sort of 360 I mean, if you're not familiar with VR and kind of the fun of it, being in that sort of 360 environment can really do quite a bit and really take you there when it's not over the top. And so much of it depends on the viewing experience. And there's a whole host nowadays of different whatchamacallit, headsets and whatnot to view it in, and that makes makes an absolute world of difference on what is what the best way to view that is. But from a storytelling and a documentation point of view, 360 VR, if it's high enough resolution, is wonderful. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a sec. And this is just a little bit more of some of the archaeology project where the photogrammetry, it was just, again, kind of cool. The photogrammetry has become the de facto tool. So we started back with, paper, pen, and a tape measure, and now before and during the entire process, we go down and document everything. Even when they have a grid, even when they can triangulate, the power of photogrammetry is finally, I think, here to stay. Now, what probably one of my biggest projects yet, and one of my favorite, was last year we were out on Titanic. And it was not my first trip to Titanic, it was my third or fourth. We were blown out a few times. Actually, I think it was my fifth trip, but we were blown out on two of them previously. But this one, it was the first time it was a full-on imaging, and they wanted the best system that they could possibly get. And so we had some of the best ROVs in the world. There were Schilling ROVs, and this is a picture of the control room. So if you're a pilot, this is what you look at. If you're a camera operator, this is what you look at. And basically everything are screens and computers now. And what we're showing there is at this point, so this was a challenge. Like going out on Titanic, we were running at a knot, and we were going to be 2 to 3 meters off the surface, and they wanted to be able to resolve things that were less than a centimeter. That was a very, very difficult order, and it's something that we ultimately managed to achieve. This was like almost the halfway point where we collected 1 million images. I think we ended up with just under or over 2 million images by the end of it. What we did is we had three 64 megapixel cameras, still cameras on there. And then we also had a 9,000 by 7,000 motion imager on there. And so you'll notice the aspect ratio on some of these are a little odd. But in and of itself, you can look at some of this and be like, oh, okay, well, that's nice. I mean, this is the one on our left. This is a suitcase with shoes. The one to the right was a door. It was the rotating door from the first class lounge and whatnot. But when you're looking at this stuff in real time, all you basically see is, it's not quite a blur, but it's largely a blur. And so we don't even know what we're getting until we're halfway, until we've looked at the images after. This is one of the purser's bags that is loaded with the goods that were cleaned out of the safes and taken by the pursers as the ship was going down. These are, we still don't know. There's this was spotted by an earlier expedition, or at least the megalodon tooth that's in there. And if you look carefully, you might be able to see it. But there were also all these just bracelets, and it looks like a fishing lure, and but this jewelry that we'd never seen. And again, we didn't see this in real time. That's kind of the wild and weird thing about it. But to date, that's definitely one of the highest resolution surveys conducted on the ocean floor, and we covered. I think we covered like 60% of the whole site. So there's this is there's the digital twin that's out there, and we built a number of cameras that were out on that expedition. This particular one is from a separate one, But what's kind of neat is when we ended up doing this, our client, if you will, was like, they didn't give us a lot of orders. They just said we need something better and higher resolution. I'm like, okay, well, that's, we'll make it as future-proof as we possibly can right now. And, you can always go out and do more and do better, but I don't know, eventually I suppose there comes a point where, it becomes why bother, but what is it you want to see? But in this stuff, they literally wanted to be able to resolve grains of sand, and that's what we had to shoot for. So just an example of something that can also be done. This was a friend of mine, Laura James, and I were working on this, that we called it the MAS, Marine Archaeology Simulator, where you could take these models and you could, as an end user, you could go in there and start to examine things and highlight and, both read and annotate and really try to interact with some of this stuff. Anyway, it's a concept, and it's just something that I think is going to become more and more prevalent. So for the second half of this, or the last little bit here, I was going to get into Britannic. And so Britannic, Titanic, as I mentioned, I mean, that's a shipwreck that's been near and dear to my heart in many ways, from the technical challenges to the really neat personal things that have happened for me out there. But my whole career, for one reason or another, has been tied up in Titanic, and ultimately the sister ship, Britannic. And Britannic is in dive. And most of you probably know this, so I'm not going to belabor any of the history of this too much. But she's in Greece, and she is one of the more beautiful shipwrecks that we've had a chance to dive. And I had my first dive on that in 2006, and it just captivated me. Because for me, it was one of the first shipwrecks that was largely intact, and you go down, you land on this, you look left, you look right, you look ahead, you look behind you, and all you see is shipwreck. And I've never seen anything like it. I mean, Cousteau said it best: you feel like a flea on the back of an elephant, and that's literally what it's like. And then you go inside. And it's it's a maze. It's a three-dimensional maze that is just unlike anything I've ever had a chance to dive. And I mean, suffice to say, I fell in love with it, and the whole concept of just like going in and using Britannic to learn about Titanic, and not just about Titanic, but about the Olympic liners in general. And you just get into the minutia of it, and like, oh, okay, Titanic was this incredible luxury ship, and after she sank, Britannic was built in a similar manner, but obviously lots of changes were made, and so many people wanted to figure out what those changes were, and we were one of them. And there's nothing that history likes more, that TV likes more than a mystery, something that we need to try to solve. And originally it was like, oh, what sank it? Well, eventually that was pretty definitively proven. That was a mine in Greece that was laid by the U-73. So then it's like, well, what are the differences between the wrecks, and what can we find? How was she fitted? There are many things like that still, aren't really known. But well, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh no, I apologize. There was something up on our screen. I was trying to correct it. I'm sorry.
Oh yeah. No problem. That's good. At least I was just wondering. I'm like, I wonder if anybody's still there. If I still am connected or not. But anyway, so Britannic. There was exploration. Cousteau found it back in the 70s. They did a show on it. It's a fascinating and fun piece of history if you ever have a chance to watch that. Technical diving found it in the 90s, and by the time we got involved, some of our team started in 2003. But for the most part, we ended up being the prime team to go and make, we're a bunch of, wreck diving idiots, and we just became obsessed with it, and we just wanted to go back and back and back again. And so unfortunately, in 2009, our expedition leader and good friend was killed on the wreck in a pretty sad diving accident, and that was the last time for a very long time that we had permission and a permit to go inside the wreck. And about 2 years after that, it became my my white whale, whatever you want to call it. My obsession was to try to finish the work that we started in 2009. And I put in permits every year. I started working with the owner of the wreck, Simon Mills, to go and get permits. And the Greeks were rightfully a little scared. They really didn't have people there that were on the effort side who understood deep diving, and their general philosophy at that point was, no, we're just going to lock it all down. Nobody does anything. Well, Simon and I, we talked quite a bit about, how we could get permission and what we could do. And Simon eventually felt confident enough, and I was able to get a grant from the Explorers Club to go and fund the beginning of sort of the Britannic interior exploration project. And this, out of all the things I've done, this is definitely, among my favorite, because some of the end results were, Britannic becoming part of the first marine park in Greece. It's protected now. And it was always protected in a certain way, but now it's part of a park where people can dive it. You used to not be able to just go and dive it. Now you can. Now there's infrastructure there. Now you don't need to spend thousands of dollars and attorneys getting permits to just dive the outside of it. But it's still a dangerous dive. It's a technical dive, and we have been, everybody on here generally has had years of deep diving experience, and it's, our average dive is about 6 hours. You can hit the wreck at about 300. By the time you're in an area where you're actually able to do some work, you're at, usually in the 330 range, 360, and then it's more or less 400 or a little less to the sand, depends. But, the inside is just, it's a labyrinth. And, one of the interesting and fun things about it has been finding, there were no as-builts, not really, no as-builts. And so there were, we've gone down and found, giant bathrooms where there was nothing listed, hallways that weren't supposed to be there, doors through closet, just all this random stuff. But it all starts with, really, this is a whole other presentation, but, the dive safety aspect. I mean, we all take that very seriously. Everybody plays the role of dive supervisor or dive safety officer. We always have dive marshals. If you're part of the team, you're never going to dive every day. You're gonna spend 1-2 days at least topside, so that we always know we have people that are there to that understand what we're doing and support it. And if you can't trust the people that you're on your team, then you really have to think about who's on your team. So this is just where we were trying to get to initially, but just never really had the funding. This was just one dive that I managed to squeeze in to go start doing some photogrammetry up on the bow. We actually had a week of a submarine, but we were blown out the entire week. And so this is a combination of what the submarine could get, which is this pack side, and it wasn't very much, and the stuff that I got diving up on the front. Again, just to, this is kind of one of my dreams, is to fill this whole wreck in, but I need a week, I need a month of good diving to actually make that happen. And so far, I haven't been able to save up the money or get somebody to fund that, but that's still what we're looking to do. But what most people really wanted to know was what was going on inside. We know the grand staircase. We're all familiar with that from Titanic and Jack, and Cameron made this famous. The Turkish baths, the swimming pool. These are like things that really people wanted answers about, and that was what our initial mission was to go in and start to explore. And I'm just going to go through a couple of slides about, we started exploring, and, you know, it always begins a little bit on the outside. We got into spaces that, you know, really no one's ever been to before, not since she went down. And even into things like the engine room. And you know, a lot of this stuff all this footage has been embargoed and whatnot, but, you know, we at least have some shots here. This is, you know, bridge equipment. And one of the things that we're hoping to go back and start to recover this year are some of the larger items from the bridge. There's a number of museums that are looking for it, and we hope to be able to accommodate. This is coming out of the wreck after doing Richie and myself doing a long dive. This is coming out of one of the boiler, above one of the boiler casings, and swimming out. That's the one nice thing in that is that in many of the areas, there's always another way out, except for a couple of the area. So if we have time and interest, I'll show some video from the boiler rooms, which are. That was pretty hairy, but most of the time you have another way out, as long as the wreck isn't collapsing and stuff like that, which is unfortunately what's starting to happen now. You'll start noticing as you go through and you've got, you know, decks above you, you'll start to notice stanchions that are bent, and you're like, huh. Now, were they bent when this went down, or is that happening over the last, you know, 10, 15 years? And of course, we don't know because no one's really been in here. Excuse me. This is looking into what they call the turbine room, right behind the engine room, and again, all of these are, you know, dropping in, going down decks, and of course the ship lays on her side, so it's sort of a mental puzzle to always think about. Okay, well, this is the wall. I need to go. You know, if I'm going lateral, I'm actually going down into the ship. So if you go a certain way and I take a right, you know, and you get a little confused, well, you're actually going into, you know, a much more dangerous spot. Richie and I once took a wrong turn and ended in what we called the hallway of death, because we went down this hallway expecting to be able to get out. There were no doors, no exits, no nothing. Spaghetti hanging, you know, wires everywhere. And yeah, I mean, you go through these spots and they silt up quickly. And you'll see in this next one here, you know, this is sort of down towards the bottom of the wreck. A lot of the Titaniacs out there and the Britannic aficionados, they all have questions about the tile. I don't know why the tile is so important, but every single one of them, like, you've got to find, is it a red tile, is it a blue tile, is it green? And so we always make a very big effort to get pictures of the tile and make sure we document where they are so that everybody, you know, all these people that, again, it's that minutia of a wreck, but it's something that somebody cares deeply about. So try to help them all out. And a lot of these guys, they're the ones that have made our job, I won't say easy, but a lot easier, because they've gone through all the plans. They've built 3D models of these things, and I think I might have a video on here in a bit of you know, of where we're supposed to go. So you talk about visualizing it. It's a phenomenal tool, because it really does help put your mind as to, like, okay, I should be going this, and it's usually not right, but it's close enough, and then you get to see something, and something triggers it, and you're like, oh wait, that's got to be this, and you start putting it all together, and it's fantastic. And that is the thing. This is all a team effort. You know, there's no one person. Yeah, I mean, I spent a lot of time getting permits and funding and whatnot, but it's all about the people that you bring. And I'm showing images here, and I probably should mention this. These images are spread. I didn't take most of it. Well, a lot of these I did, but most of these are, we spread them out among the team. We have 3 or 4 of us that are dedicated photographers. And our sort of mantra on this is, you know what, just because I took the image doesn't mean that I'm the person responsible for it. It's a team effort across the board. And, you know, to that end, you know, this stuff is everybody from, you know, Richie, Katie Kohler, Barry, McGill, I mean, Stewie, Perry, I mean, all these people that are, you know, sort of great names and great people in sort of the technical diving world. And we wouldn't be able to do that without them. But this is a shot from inside the lamp locker, and that particular lamp was recovered shortly thereafter.
Richie, have pictures.
This was one of our exciting recoveries. We didn't find this, so for years we've been diving on this wreck, and this is crazy. But we were told that the bell had been liberated by Cousteau, and that was the rumor. That's what we had been told. This was the bell from the. This would have been like the lifeboat. The crow's nest bell that they rang in the movie Titanic. Where they were sort of ringing the bell. This would have been the bell that they rang when they spotted ice. And so when you go to Britannic, there's a very big difference between diving 360 and 400 down in the sand. So most people don't go to the sand unless they have to, like the hook is out in the sand and they have to come out. We've even been down there on submarines. We were all around the mast, all this stuff, and nobody ever saw this. And unfortunately, Joe Manzarani and this guy Rick Simon, two divers from here, I think 5 years ago, they went out and they're like, hey, let's go look at the bottom of the mast. They went down to the crow's nest, looked down, and there's the bell sitting right there. So it just goes to show you, one, you can't believe everything that you heard and that you hear, but we did find a line attached to it, which was a little odd. So maybe somebody was trying to recover it at one point. But unfortunately, Joe passed away this year on a dive, and it's sad. He never got to see. Well, actually, he did get to see pictures, but he never got to. We were hoping that they were going to be able to make it to the museum when this is eventually displayed. So all these things that we're bringing up are now going to be displayed over at a new museum opening up in Piraeus in Greece, which is pretty exciting. So people always love the crockery and ask about it, and we found many places of crockery deep inside the wreck. And we brought stuff up and recovered it, and it's all in sort of preservation right now. But again, after almost 20 years now, this was our team from this year with the bell, and it's a good mix. It's a good mix of people. On the bottom right, that's the owner of the wreck, Simon Mills, who. Again, he's got a great book. If you're interested in sort of learning more and seeing more, it's called, I think, Inside the Britannic, and it's all about our mission, these missions in the last couple of years. But photos that we're generally out that we're not supposed to see. People are still divers and like to have fun, and these are all from. In the wreck, they're hard to see, but we found a pair of binoculars, which was pretty neat. And again, at the end of the day, it is about having fun. And I mentioned earlier that, we don't get to dive every day. Well, the last day of diving, I couldn't dive because it was my turn to be dive marshal, so I had to sit out of the water. And although I got to recover things with everybody the day before, I missed out on a lot of the really big stuff. But, that's part and parcel of running a project and just being part of a team. And of course the post beer is, this is literally, you get off a boat and you walk by a bar, and if the lead archaeologist happens to hand you beers because they're that happy, well then you have to have one.
I love it.
So I think this is a video. So all of this stuff is brought up by hand. We attach it, we put it in double bags. These are folks from the effort that are recovering this stuff, bringing it in. There's a lot of bubble wrap, everything gets wrapped out at sea, but it's all on ribs. And most of the diving these days in Greece is done, certainly on Britannic, it's all done from ribs because of Kia Divers. Kia Divers is this wonderful facility that's there. They're based locally, and when we first started this, we had to bring in ships, we had to bring in compressors, we had to bring in tent, we had to bring in everything. That's the history of diving. This is it's an awesome story. Just our part of it is like, it's 20 years now, but I mean, it's epic. I mean, the first time we were there, I mean, you know, half the people were thrown in jail, had dysentery. I mean, it was insane. All of many mishaps that would take place in Greece. Probably one of the more important things. I was looking at videos. I'm like, oh, I wonder what this one is. Like, I don't remember what did we recover. But you know, you spend a lot of time out there, and at the end of the day, sometimes having a sandwich is definitely one of the most important. And you know, our delivery system, you know, hasn't changed that much. Um, and I mean, that's what I have here for now. I've got other videos I can pull up, but you know, sorry, it's a smattering of many things, but yeah. I don't know if you have any
Well, Evan,
questions
I
or.
love this last picture here with the Explorer Club's flag. You know, so having been on both the Antarctica expeditions and the Arctic expeditions, there was they carried the Explorer's flag on a couple different projects. So that's pretty cool. What's this one
Yeah,
from?
this was actually one of my favorite dives there. It was 2015, and we had it was a Russian ship. Actually, it was a Maltese ship, and they had several submarines, an ROV, and the single best thing ever was the diving bell. And the diving bell, where you could get out, you know, you go swim into that. There was hot water being pumped in. Safety, of course, is just increased 100-fold because, you know, if somebody does have a seizure, you can pull them in here, get their face out of the water, and you know they'll eventually be able to come to. And you know, I mean, had we things like this in 2009, you know, Carl would have still been alive. Um, but it was fantastic, and this was, I mean, many of our trips there have been flagged, and yeah, that was one of them. But the Explorers Club, you know, I never knew what to think about them for a long time. You know, I mean, I thought it was like they had been involved in a lot of really neat things, but I didn't quite. They changed a lot of stuff over the last decade, and I love what they're doing for young explorers. They're helping to fund and facilitate expeditions and people, and I mean, it became. When I first started, I thought it was more like, oh, it's just like, you know, a bunch of people, bunch of old rich people talking about exploring, but it's become a much, you know, I suppose there's still an element to that, but they've become a much more dynamic and I don't know, important group. You know, not they've always been important. They've always been associated with it, but I mean, they're actively doing things now and helping to make these things happen, which is pretty cool.
And reaching out to younger people to try to get younger folks involved and create grants and that sort of thing. So
Absolutely, yeah, yeah,
love
exactly.
that. So I can't help but notice because I'm a female-owned dive store, of course, some of the ladies that you work with. So can you give a shout out to some of the ladies that you work with, including your wife,
Absolutely.
right? Your bride?
Well, no, she's been out with us quite a bit. My wife and I get to work together frequently. She's not she dives, but she's not a technical diver. She'll often go out and she does the technical side of things.
Yes.
So she'll help prep gear. And then what she really does is she takes all the stuff that we shoot and makes it look nice and makes it look good. So I mean, yeah, without her, and you know, others like her, we you know, we'd be just doing more diver videos, which is great, but you know, sometimes we've got to step it up a bit. But you know, on that, you know, Katie Kohler is one that's been working with us. Like one of the things that we try to do I try to do, especially on projects, is, you know, I'm 50 now, or 51. And you know, when I started this, I was the kid in all of these projects, and now I'm becoming the elder statesman or something. And so it's important that, you know, as much as we can, it's an aging sport, that we try to bring in the next generation as much as possible. And so, I mean, I make every effort to make sure I have a smattering of, you know, qualified. Now, we don't just take people because we want to take them, but qualified people. And you know, we had a number of people that were under 30 on these. Several. I mean, Katie's the the most probably distinguished woman on the group. Just she came in. She's been technical diving, I don't know, 5-6 years now, and that's probably on the younger side of what we would normally bring into these projects.
Sure. Yep.
And but I mean, she worked her way up, and she put her time in, and she's been in the water, relentlessly, and it's nonstop. And she's also a paramedic, EMT, helicopter pilot, and so she gets procedure and protocol and things like that. And so, I mean, this last year she was the DSO, so the dive safety officer on our project, on the Britannic project, and I hire her on other projects as well to do the same thing, both be a diver and run the safety aspect. And I mean, she's implemented a lot of good. I mean, things that seem mundane maybe on the surface, but every project we go out on that she's running, she makes everybody do a first aid CPR class, a refresher, not a whole class, but because she's been several times in the last year where she's been on dive boats and people needed to have CPR.
Sure.
And I mean, it's crazy, but I mean, these are the realities of kind of what we do.
Well, and I too have been on actually just Caribbean vacations where CPR was necessary. So just a quick shout out to there's nothing worse than not knowing what to do. So make sure you sharpen up your skills and participate in the process. You're never usually alone, so you're able to work with a team, but understanding the process and what needs to get done and being a participant in that. But I love hearing about Katie, of course, the ladies, whoop, whoop, the ladies in the house,
Well,
so.
The most important woman I shouldn't say that, the most important person on the entire Britannic expedition who has been there since day one is a woman by the name of Tina Taverdew, who just learned to dive 2 years ago or 3 years ago. And when I met her, she picked me up for a shoot, and I crawled into the back of a van. I mean, this is 20 years ago, before Britannic. Crawled into the back of a van, passed out because I'd been traveling and shooting for days. And I woke up, and when I woke up, she didn't stop talking for the next 2 hours till we got to wherever it was. And I realized that, we became friends. I'm like, this is my sister. She's my Greek sister. And when we went to Britannic, one of my favorite memories of her ever is we rented a fishing boat, Captain. We rented a fishing boat, a commercial fishing boat on one of our trips there. And it was, I mean, to say it was a shit show is to put it nicely. And Tina was there, and she's half Greek and half Swedish. And this fishing boat captain he was terrible. And she would get up, and she just went toe to toe with this guy. And it's like, no. Oh, and just yelling and screaming and screaming and yelling and screaming. And the guy eventually backed down, and she's like, that's why I'm a black belt in karate, And that's who she was. And after that, I'm like, you are on every trip we ever do to Greece, and she has been. She's helped arrange them, and she's a powerhouse that I couldn't imagine going without. So.
Yeah, I love hearing your stories, but I also know, like we've had Michelle and Howard Hall on before. Just the logistics of doing what you're doing. The background of it all and the people involved, like Tina, for example, that make it all happen, right? The unsung heroes for all intents and purposes, incredible, right? I mean, like you said, this doesn't happen without a team of people behind you.
No, absolutely. Sometimes it's easier people get that a little bit more. Like, we do a lot of submersible stuff, and I mean, this is like smattering of a lot of different things, right? But if we go and we do a deep project, people are like, oh, okay, well, and you start to explain, well, I'm not driving the submersible. I might drive the ROV, but not the submersible. And, I wouldn't be able to get these shots without, a great pilot. But that great pilot has a great co-pilot. And that sub would never be launched without a great bosun and a good captain and a good chief side, and all of these things. And I mean, that's the thing that, I mean, it's just nothing happens. I mean, even the lone photographer, I mean, Becky's a great example. I mean, Becky's a phenomenal photographer. And when you talk to her, I mean, she's taking the shots, but she's setting these up with a bunch of people that help her out to make a shot just pop and be as beautiful as it is. And I mean, I mean, it's always a team effort. And I think the quicker everybody just both learns that and embraces it in your career, it's like the better you're going to be, and the further you'll be able to go, and the more, frankly, the more you're going to be able to do, right? I mean, we just don't want to work with people that are going to be difficult or have big egos, and especially if you're going to be out on a ship with them for 30 to 60 days or on the road. I mean, you want people that gel and kind of come together, and there's always going to be tense moments, but that you can be a little fluid and kind of roll with the situation as it comes up. So,
well, I do like how you're saying that, but it all started when I just got into the business in 2002. It was all about those New York wreck divers, right? Who were exactly what you're describing. All that personality, all that ego, trying to go out as an individual. And it is neat to see you and others coming together and creating some history, right? Some focusing on the history. So, does anybody out in that's still on the call? Do you guys have any questions for Evan? Something that might have sparked your interest? You have some questions about? I think you can
No questions. That was a really great presentation.
Yeah, that's Sarah. So Sarah was with us, in Antarctica. So
very cool.
Yeah.
Well, if I tend to do a shotgun approach because I never really know what to focus on. So if there's ever anything you want me to focus on, let me know. I mean, obviously, I guess I can talk. I get pretty shy, but I can talk when I start talking. So, I'm happy to chat more and put stuff together. I just never really know what to do these things on. So.
Well,
I've got a quick question.
It's interesting to hear all the variety that you do. So, yeah, I interrupted somebody. Anybody else have something they want to share?
I joined late, so sorry if you covered this, but I'm just curious, do you do any work with sonar at all, or is it just cameras and LiDAR?
So like acoustic sonar, or is that what you're asking?
Sure, just sonar to do any of the measurements or imaging.
We do. So they're all. Yes, we do. The short answer is yes. Most of it is side scan and multi-beam, and we sort of do on when we get to that level. What we tend to do is what we call just a layered approach. So they all have varying levels of both resolution, and complexity and whatnot. So multi-beam is going to be wonderful for giving you. Sort of that big picture. It's not going to give you the detail you want. If it's too deep, then side scan and sonar, both from a searching perspective, from a measuring perspective, from being able to help, plan things out safely, especially if it's a deep shipwreck. The thing that keeps us all up at night when we're diving and going to sites unknown, like, how many billowing nets of death are there on there? And, what do I need to bring with me to get out of it? And so when we can go and use sonar, especially for that kind of tool, that's important, very important. When we're looking for things, obviously nothing beats side scan. We do work all over the world for the DPAA. I just talked about a couple of them, but we've been doing searches all over the Pacific, looking for things, and having I know it, I use it, but I'm not an expert in it. I always get into this, but the most important thing you can do on any of these things is make sure you bring a lot of people that are much smarter and better than you. That's how you're successful in this. And we have a gentleman that we work with who runs a company. I encourage you to look at it, especially if you're interested. It's called Eastern Search and Survey, ESS. His name is Ben Roberts, and he is I mean, he basically adapted and created his own neutrally buoyant side scan system with a heave comp that, we can get down 1,000 feet on a 20-foot boat and get better images than most of the ships that are out there. And we helped make some stuff work better for traveling and for doing some of the boat stuff that we were doing. But I mean, he built this stuff. He's an enthusiast, and now it's turned into a whole other career. And so it's got in many ways like kind of what I mean for me how this all started. I mean, I was just a diver and somebody on stage and doing lighting in New York, and it turned into I did not go to school for this, and never in a million years expected to be here. But very happy that I am. And anyway, but going back to the measurement stuff, so we'll use that. Like we will use sonar on the ROVs. I'd like to be able to integrate certain sonar into like our sea array system and be able to do that because there's a lot of benefits to it. And I know it can be done, and things like that have been done. I just haven't had the funding to get to do that. So if you're looking to do stuff like that on the side, and if it's something that you're interested in, please email me. Let me know.
You might have some takers on this call for sure. Yeah.
No, I mean I can't tell you how much stuff. I mean, like we have someone. I mean, we have great people around. I mean, but there's, I mean, we're still a very small, scrappy little company, and I can't afford the $200,000 guy, electrical engineers who are wonderful, but even to come out and design a board, that's going to be $30,000. I'm like, it doesn't have much on it. Why does it have to be so much? And so, that's half the reason I learned the stuff that I learned. It's just that people were too expensive or too difficult to work with. I love our community because, like in the dive community, there is somebody that does anything and everything that we want, and I just need to find them more often than not. And we do, and I mean, almost all of these projects that we're doing. I mean, they're even if they're not diving projects, almost every single person that we've hired and brought on are people that I've met on diving projects. And I don't know. I mean, obviously I'm biased to it. But I'm like, all right, well, at least if they're a diver, they understand Z space, they know what an O-ring is. They're going to get a couple of the things. I don't have to. I'm not starting with, like, when I was teaching stage crew in college, I was like, if I have to explain to somebody how to use a hammer, just at its most basic, it's just never going to work. And when you bring folks in and they're like, so why do you, why don't we just do the O-ring here? I'm like, because that's on the outside, that doesn't work. Things like that. Well, I found a groove, I put an O-ring in, and I'm like, yeah, well, that was not where that was where it was going to clamp. These are like real things, and you're like, oh my God, how are we starting here?
I love all this, and for me personally, because I started scuba in early 2000s kind of a thing. All the work that Richie Kohler was doing, the deep sea detectives and everything else, right? I mean, that was everybody knew about that, and we were all talking about it and super excited. So getting to see him like at DEMA, and then hearing the projects that you guys are all collaborating on is pretty. It's humbling and lovely, and I just congratulate you guys on your successes. It's our successes, I feel, to a certain degree, right? And I'm really proud of you guys.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So with that, I just want to thank you for joining us tonight. It's about 8:30, and I think we're going to wrap up this session. I could talk to you for hours, I'll be honest with you. So thank you so much for joining us, Evan. Thank you for sharing your work. And the variety of projects that you've worked on. I think I've scribbled down a lot of notes and a lot of things that I want to take a closer look at. So I know a lot of folks here, we were all chattering in the background and sharing ideas. So if everybody will just take a quick join me in thanking Evan for joining us.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot. Really enjoyed it.
Yeah, so you take good care, best wishes, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah.
We'll see you out there.
Thank you, everybody. Happy holidays and take care.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Evan.
All right. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Thank
Good
you.
night. Good
Bye-bye.
night, everybody.